A single cloud drifted above the city, bright white against the deep blue of a late summer morning. For the people of Nagasaki, it was an ordinary sight, so ordinary that no one paid the slightest attention. Fishermen hauled their catches ashore. Street vendors argued good-naturedly with customers. Schoolchildren in pressed uniforms hurried along narrow lanes. What no one knew was that, at that very moment, a B-29 bomber named Boxcar was circling overhead, searching for a break in the weather and for the perfect moment to drop the world's second atomic bomb. The story of Nagasaki's destruction begins with a twist of fate, a combination of clouds, miscommunication, and mechanical trouble so unlikely that it seems almost cinematic. The intended target wasn't even Nagasaki. It was Kokura, an industrial city 160 kilometers away. The bomber crew arrived over Kokura that morning, expecting a clear view of their objective. Instead, they found the city veiled in smoke, thick, dark, impenetrable smoke, created by a massive firebombing raid on a nearby arsenal the night before. Historians still argue whether the Kokura residents were saved by coincidence or by strategic sabotage. But one fact stands unshakable. Cloud cover over Kokura sealed the fate of Nagasaki. With fuel running dangerously low and orders forbidding a blind drop, the crew had to make a split-second decision: head home with a live atomic bomb at great risk of accidental detonation, or head for the secondary target. The bomber turned, engines groaning, toward a city nestled between mountains, a city famous for its Catholic churches, shipyards, and terraced homes climbing green hillsides. Nagasaki, a place that had survived centuries of foreign traders, pandemics, and persecution, was about to become the epicenter of a force unlike anything in human history, except for what had happened just 3 days before in Hiroshima. Inside the bomb bay hung Fat Man, a plutonium device far more complex and far more powerful than its uranium predecessor. This bomb wasn't sleek and streamlined. It looked almost comically round, like a steel grapefruit, but its design represented the cutting edge of the Manhattan Project, the result of frantic scientific innovation and a desperate wartime race against Nazi Germany. Only one other device of this type had ever been tested, at the Trinity site in the New Mexico desert. And even that test had left the creators astonished. The blast at Trinity turned sand to glass and sent shockwaves felt miles away. J. Robert Oppenheimer famously recalled a line from Hindu scripture: "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." At 11:02 a.m. on August 9th, 1945, Nagasaki became the second world to be destroyed. The moment the bomb detonated, a sphere of light appeared over the Urakami Valley, so bright that survivors said the sun seemed to vanish. The mountains surrounding the city contained the explosion like the walls of a bowl, focusing the blast inward. Where neighborhoods had stood, a cathedral, a school, a row of factories, there was suddenly a valley of fire. Temperatures near the epicenter exceeded 3,000 degrees Celsius. Stones cracked, steel beams twisted like soft clay. The blast wave tore across the valley with the force of a hurricane composed of needles and flame. In the Urakami Cathedral, once the largest Catholic church in East Asia, worshippers preparing for confession were thrown against walls in an instant. Statues melted, the marble pillars shattered. For years afterward, workers sifting the ruins would find rosaries fused into lumps of glass. Yet even destruction has moments of surreal, almost unbelievable peculiarity. One survivor recalled seeing a small bird of flame spiraling through the air before disappearing into the smoke. Another described how the water in a nearby river boiled from the heat, sending steam rising like ghosts above the surface. A doctor who had been treating patients in a hospital just beyond the blast zone reported that windows exploded inward so violently that glass embedded itself in the far wall like a constellation of stars. And then came the silence, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy quiet that follows after everything familiar has been stripped away. Survivors stood in streets, reduced to rubble, trying to understand a world where the sky had turned orange and shadows appeared burnt into walls. One man, covered in ash, said he felt as if he were wandering through the ruins of a dream he couldn't quite remember. But the story of Nagasaki is not only one of devastation, it's also a story of profound confusion, both in the city and in the outside world. Many Japanese leaders didn't believe a second atomic bomb existed. After Hiroshima, they assumed the United States had used its only weapon. The detonation over Nagasaki forced them to confront a terrifying truth. If the Americans had two bombs, they might have more. Meanwhile, in Washington, officials waited anxiously for confirmation. Unlike Hiroshima, where the bomb hit directly over a densely packed center, Nagasaki's topography limited the destruction. Mountains blocked the blast from reaching certain neighborhoods, and the bomb missed its intended drop point by nearly 2 miles. Even so, tens of thousands were dead or mortally wounded within seconds. The weapon that fell on Nagasaki was initially expected to produce a larger blast than Little Boy. The bomb dropped on Hiroshima. But due to the terrain and the offset detonation point, its full power was strangely uneven, like a torch shining through a cracked lens. Some areas were reduced to ash, others remained standing with eerie normalcy, as if spared by a selective hand. Survivors later said this patchwork destruction felt almost more disturbing than complete annihilation. In the hours that followed, Nagasaki's remaining hospitals became scenes of both extraordinary heroism and terrible despair. Doctors improvised treatments from whatever they could find. Nurses tore their own clothing into bandages. Priests carried the injured out of the rubble of destroyed churches. Many of the wounded sought relief in the rivers, their burns soothed for a moment by cool water that quickly filled with thousands of bodies. Days later, the hidden cruelty of the bomb revealed itself. Radiation. People who felt healthy after the blast suddenly collapsed, feverish and delirious. Hair fell out in clumps. Wounds that had appeared to be healing reopened and bled. There were accounts of survivors turning to look at friends, only to see purple lesions spreading across their skin like ink in water. And yet, out of this nightmare rose some of the most remarkable stories of resilience. In the Urakami district, a group of Catholic survivors gathered amid the ruins of their cathedral and sang hymns, their voices shaking but determined. In the shipyards, workers who had been blown meters through the air returned the next day to help locate missing co-workers. Families who had lost homes and nearly everything else built makeshift shelters and shared whatever food remained. Nagasaki faced a prolonged silence in the years after the war. For decades, many hibakusha were reluctant to speak about their experiences, fearing discrimination and a misunderstanding. But slowly, their stories emerged. One survivor, a teenage girl at the time, later traveled the world to talk about nuclear weapons. She described the bomb as a warning that came in fire and said that every survivor carried a memory that glows like an ember, too hot to hold, too dangerous to drop. Japan's leadership, shaken to its core, surrendered on August 15th. Emperor Hirohito's broadcast, heard by millions across a defeated nation, spoke of the need to save the people from further sacrifice. He never mentioned Nagasaki by name. He didn't need to. In the years that followed, Nagasaki rebuilt itself with remarkable tenacity. The Urakami Cathedral was reconstructed stone by stone. Cherry trees were planted over scorched earth. The Peace Park grew around the hypocenter, where statues now stretched skyward in gestures of prayer, sorrow, and hope. Visitors today often remark on how peaceful the city feels, a place shaped by tragedy, but not defined by it. Still, the shadow of that day remains. The debates echo on. Was the second bomb necessary? Would Japan have surrendered without it? Why Nagasaki? Why another city full of civilians? Historians continue to search for answers, but the survivors provide the most enduring truth. In the span of a few seconds, the world witnessed destruction on a scale so immense that language itself struggles to describe it. Nagasaki's story is a reminder of the razor-thin line between chance and catastrophe. If clouds hadn't drifted over Kokura, if the crew of Boxcar had turned back earlier, if the bomb had malfunctioned even slightly, the history of the world might look very different. But history unfolded the way it did, and a city forever changed now stands as a testament to resilience, memory, and the unending human hope that such a day will never come again.